Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Robo Celestial here with a new video for you. Welcome to What If Deku Had Perfect Combo Part 4. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. We continue right after the first match of combat training as Izuku, Bakugo, Uraraka, and Ito arrive at the observation room. When they walk in, a few of their fellow classmates give them compliments on their quirks and skills shown during the exercise, but All Might interrupts after a short minute and regains his student's attention, allowing him to go over the previous match. During this, All Might goes over things that Bakugo, Ida, Uraraka, and Izuku did right and their mistakes while mentioning areas that they seem to need improvement in. By the end of the review, Ryu and Ochako are both named as MVPs, impressing the majority of their classmates while it slightly annoys Kaken when the two ask why they're both MVPs. All Might looks to them and says, "It's because I couldn't pick just one of you. The amount of teamwork you both showed in the exercise was outstanding, and an excellent example of how heroes should collaborate, and individually each of you showed off your abilities to a degree that I couldn't ignore either." All Might turns around and shows some footage as examples and continues on. Uraraka's power isn't suited to direct combat, but it's highly useful for immobilizing opponents and lending support, while Midoriya showed his combat skills along with the versatility and control he has on his power, which was quite astounding. You both played to your strengths and acknowledged your own weaknesses, covering for each other to guarantee victory. This is why you both deserve MVP. This explanation makes Ochako and Izuku quite happy to be getting such high praises from the symbol of peace. Feeling decently prideful in themselves, but Uraraka feeling guilty asks, "But why does Ryu have to share the MVP with me when he did most of the fighting? Wouldn't it make more sense for Izuku to be the only MVP?" All Might gives a big smile and replies, "If fighting was the only important thing here, then yes, young Midoriya would easily be the MVP. But you all need to remember that teamwork and other skills are important to being a hero. Plus, since Uraraka did capture the bomb and assisted her teammate so well, it wouldn't be right not to acknowledge those efforts. Your win was a combined effort that you both earned." Hearing this does make Ochako feel better about being MVP with Izuku, giving All Might the chance to move on to the next match. Once the next two groups are announced, All Might tells them to head out for their exercise. The teams for this are Ajiro and Hagakure as the villains, while Shaoji and Todoroki are the heroes. But once the activity begins, it doesn't last very long, as Todoroki near instantly freezes the entire building, shocking everyone in the process with how powerful his quirk is, effortlessly ending the match by simply walking past his frozen opponents, capturing the bomb without any resistance. Once All Might calls the exercise as a hero win, Todoroki heats up his left side, quickly melting the ice, catching everyone by surprise. In reaction, they start talking about what his quirk could be, with some wondering if he has two quirks, when All Might informs them that Todoroki has a power that allows him to use ice on his right side and fire on his left. This intrigues the class, especially Bakugo and Izuku, who realize Todoroki will be some major competition for them to overcome further down the line. Later, as the remainder of the combat training is done, everyone gets a chance to see their fellow classmates' quirks and skills in action. This sort of helps them to speak to each other a little more, though it's mostly about the matches and a few other small things. Even Bakugo joins in for small conversations with some people like Kirishima or Takoyami, mentioning nice things about their powers. But nothing really big happens, so it's overall fairly uneventful. By the end of the class, All Might tells his students that he'll need to get going, but commends them for a great first day of training. As he turns around to leave, All Might decides to lend a few words of encouragement before heading off. "You all did a fine job. I see an extraordinary amount of potential from each and every single one of you. It shines like a bright light of hope for the future. I hope to see you all surpass me one day and become symbols of peace for the entire world. With that being said, don't get too full of yourselves. You still have a long way to go. This is only the beginning of your training as heroes, so keep working hard." This short speech helps to pump the class up with enthusiasm, as All Might bolts away, running down the hall to a room where he buffs down into his weak form, coughing up blood before heading to the teacher's lounge. Back with Class 1 as they start heading to the locker rooms. Still hyped up from All Might's speech and proud that he sees so much potential in them, many start to chat about a few different things, like why some wanted to become heroes, along with some just talking to get to know each other better. While this is happening, All Might arrives at the teacher's lounge and sits on the couch trying to rest, when Principal Nezu walks happily greeting his newest teacher. This causes All Might to rush to his feet, but Nezu assures him that he doesn't have to, saying, "You're fine, Tashinori, please rest. I wasn't actually looking for you, but I suppose while I'm here it'd be good to ask how your first class went." Tashinori relaxes as he sits back down and mentions that the class went well, without any hiccups at all. Once Nezu hops onto an adjacent couch, he turns to All Might, saying that he's glad to hear that, but then curiously asks a question. "So how's your search for a successor going? Do you have any new options or ideas of who it should be?" Tashinori ponders for a brief moment and replies with a slight grin on his face, I have to say there are a lot of students here with potential, other than Mirio. There are about 3 others, but I feel young Midoriya would be the best option, for many reasons, but the main is that he has the heart and spirit of a true hero." Nezu, in response, nods his head and says, "Ah yes, Izuku Midoriya, I've read his files. He's smart and has a powerful quirk that has actually caused some people to look at him as a villain, but despite that and even with a fear of his own power, he wants nothing more than to do good." Nezu pauses as he stands up and walks over to the window before continuing. "He's quite the complicated young man, and I guarantee once he overcomes his fears, he'll be capable of doing so much. With one for all, he'd surpass you and become the new symbol of peace in no time. He'd be a great successor." All Might lays back on the couch and retorts, "Yeah, I know, but I need to wait until he's ready to inherit my power. He still has a lot of growing to do on his own, but in the meantime, I'll keep an eye out for others just in case he turns down my offer." Nezu turns back to Tashinori, agreeing with his assessment to hold off on offering one for all for the time. The small principal then mentions to All Might that he also needs to remember that his duties as a teacher come first and reminds him to avoid any unnecessary work so he can be there for all his students, which the number 1 pro reluctantly agrees to make sure to do. With that, Nezu leaves a tired Tashinori to rest. At the end of the day, many small friend groups have popped up in Class 1 thanks to earlier discussions. Ryu, naturally being somewhat social, does go around, having a handful of conversations with a few of his other classmates, as Ida and Uraraka tag along with him. Bakugo, on the other hand, not wanting to follow Izuku around, does his own thing socializing with Kirishima, and randomly meets Kaminari, unexpectedly becoming okay pals with them quite fast. Overall, everyone is getting to know each other decently well, with Todoroki being the one exception, due to him avoiding any attempts at a conversation, just wanting to hang out in the background and ignore everything that's going on. That is until Kaken strolls over to discuss his quirk, asking, "So icy hot, I have gotta say you have one hell of a quirk. It's not as good as mine, but you're definitely tied with Hothead over there." Points to Izuku as he continues, "I actually think you might be a challenge for us being Endeavor's son and all. But I have to ask, what's with your power? Let me guess, it's some kind of combination of your parents' quirks, isn't it?" This makes Todoroki look up at Bakugo, giving him a dirty glare as he stands up and coldly responds, "Shut it, I'm not interested in chit-chatting with some smug, short-fused punk who thinks he's so damn great despite losing simply because he was weightless. It would be below me." Hearing this sets Bakugo off, causing his to yell back at the top of his lungs, but Ryu swiftly intervenes, calming his friend down when he turns to Todoroki and asks, "Hey, what was all that about? I know Kaken can be a little abrasive, especially when we were younger. I mean, he was awful, but he's cool now and just asked a simple question to get to know you better. How does that warrant insulting him like you did?" Todoroki proceeds to grab his bag and walk out the door as he sternly replies, "I'm not explaining myself to you, so just leave it and me alone. Go look somewhere else for friends because you're wasting both our time with this bunch of nonsense." Once Todoroki leaves, a curious Ida inquiries about Bakugo and Ryu's discussion with him, wondering why he made such rude comments when Kaken frustratedly blurts out, "Hell if I know. He just said all that crap because I tried to talk to him and asked a few questions. I wasn't even trying to be rude. Does anyone know why that drama queen acted out?" Everyone shakes their heads, just as lost as Bakugo, but they move on shortly after, starting to pack up and head home themselves, ending the second day at UA. The next day starts fairly normal, with Ryu and Kaken walking to UA together like usual. When the two friends approach their school's main gate, they notice a large crowd of reporters blocking it as they try to get interviews with students, faculty, and All Might, though they're mostly being ignored. As Bakugo and Izuku move through the crowd, a handful of journalists attempt to ask them a few questions, but they barely give any responses in favor of just pushing on towards the gate, taking a couple of minutes to finally enter the campus. Later on, around the time classes are about to start for the day, Mr. Aisawa goes out to the reporters, where they ask him to get All Might, but Aisawa just waves them off and tells the crowd that they need to refrain from bothering his students and leave before heading back into the school. This only riles up some members of the press. One tries to storm through the gate out of frustration but is halted by the UA barrier activating, effectively closing off the campus, or so it seems. Now with Class 1A. Right when the bell rings, Mr. Aizawa begins to lecture them about their results from yesterday's combat training and gives out some pointers as well as scolds some students for certain mistakes they made. When he moves on to Ryu, he goes over mostly positive things, saying, "Izuku, I must admit I was impressed by your performance. It was one of the few that did, but while you're definitely using your quirk much more efficiently, it's clear you're not using it to the fullest potential. Keep working on that, understood?" Midoriya nods his head, agreeing to his teacher's request despite being a little confused about what he meant by fullest potential. Aizawa quickly moves on and announces to the class that they'll be doing something important today, causing everyone to worry that it's another quirk test. However, their slight fear dissipates when Aizawa tells them that they'll need to pick a class representative. Upon hearing this, the whole class instantly erupts into an uproar, with everyone wanting to be the rep, but Ida quiets them down with a suggestion to vote on who it should be, which they all agree to. When all the votes are tallied up, the results reveal that Izuku is chosen to be rep, getting up to 7 votes in total due to quite a number of different things, while the second most votes went to Bakugo, who got 3 votes, beating Yaoyorozu by 1. Now Kaken did vote for himself, but he got the other 2 votes from Kirishima and Kaminari thanks to him making a decently good impression on them. Ida, along with Momo, are a little hurt about losing, though everybody in the class is generally fine with the outcome. Ryu walks up to the front of the room, with Bakugo right next to him, where he confidently accepts his role as class rep and promises to do the best he can, while Kaken just stands there annoyed he lost to his rival. Not long after this, Class 1 all head to the cafeteria, where a large number of the students sit with friend groups that they made the day prior. In the case of Izuku, he's joined by Bakugo, Uraraka, Ida, Kirishima, and Kaminari, who are all sitting at the same table, with Sue eventually joining them at a later point. During this, they chill and get to know each other a little better and generally have a relaxed time. Izuku does find out about who voted for him, thanking Ida, Uraraka, and Sue for their support, which after some more chatting, ends up leading Ida to mention his brother. But it's a very casual discussion. Unfortunately, this gets interrupted by a loud alarm suddenly going off, blaring a level 3 security breach. This sets the whole cafeteria into a panic as large amounts of students run out into the halls. Ida, in the midst of the commotion, asks an upperclassman what the alarm is for, learning that it means someone has broken onto the campus and that they need to evacuate. This makes Ida, along with the rest of the group sitting at the table, to get slightly concerned and attempt to leave. Once they step out into the hall, wave after wave of panicking students engulfing them, causing the group to get trapped in a stampede towards the exit, forcing everyone to get separated in the process, leaving Ida alone to claw his way to the nearest window in order to figure out exactly what's going on. When Ida makes it to a window and looks outside, he realizes that it's just the press somehow made it on school grounds. Knowing this, he tries to yell over the panicked masses in order to clarify what's going on, but it's extraordinarily hard for anyone to hear him, and admittedly Bakugo angrily shouting at the crowd, "Everyone, get your shit together already and stop being such cowards. I'm this close to blowing you all up if you don't," wasn't helping the situation. But luckily Ida notices Uraraka and asks her to make him float so he can get everyone's attention, which she does in a heartbeat. With Ida now floating above the crowd, he uses his quirk to boost towards the exit, getting everyone's attention as he informs them that the reporters are the ones who set off the alarm, managing to finally get control of the situation. Right as this happens, the police show up and remove the press from the campus while everyone is sent back to their classes to finish up the rest of the day. Back with Class 1A as Izuku is beginning to discuss who the other class officers should be. He mentions Ida actions and recommends that he should be one or an extra deputy with Bakugo. After a brief vote, the majority of the class agrees to make Ida a deputy, causing him to stand up and thank everyone for putting their trust in his abilities. The rest of the day goes on with nothing too extraordinary happening for the students at UA. But it's different for the principal, All Might, and a few other faculty members as they inspect the gate, noticing that it was nearly turned to dust by a powerful quirk. Even All Might is surprised by this and wonders if this is a glimpse of things to come. The others have the same thought cross their minds. The staff decides to keep their concerns hidden and play out the remainder of the day calmly, ensuring that the students aren't freaked out when they all finally head home, ending this odd day. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description. So feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video. So goodbye and have a divine day.